Hello, YouTube! Welcome back to another episode of Rosten's Reviews. My name's Mr. Rosten, 7-4 social studies teacher here at BMS, and I'm very excited to bring you another episode of Rosten's Reviews. That's right, friends, we're on episode 10, 30 weeks until summer vacation. I can almost feel the sand beneath my toes. I can almost feel the ocean air on my face. Oh, it's going to be such a great summer. Look, we did a lot of good things this week, so let's jump right into it. All right, here we go. So this week, we started our HIQ on the Boston Massacre, where I introduced the question to you. Our question is, who was to blame for the Boston Massacre? Was it the British and the British soldiers, led by Captain Preston, or was it the colonists? So the first thing we did is we created a little visual note. We put Boston Massacre in the middle, and we watched a couple of video clips on the Boston Massacre, and we wrote down one important detail that we found out from each source. Then on day 2, what we did is we sourced all of our sources. So what sourcing is when you look at the 5 W's of a source. And if you remember, the 5 W's are who, what, where, when, why. And we have to figure out credibility based on those 5 things. So for example, with source 1, who created the source? We don't know. We don't have an author, so we put none. What type of source is it? Well, the Boston Gazette and Country Journal is a newspaper, so we wrote down newspaper, and we know newspapers are what type of sources? That's right, primary sources. Very good. Then we wrote where it's from, and the Boston Gazette and Country Journal is in Boston. It was created on March 12, 1770. And why are newspapers there? They are there to inform the people. So we went through our checklist. So we put a negative because we don't know who the author was, so we can't really tell some bias. We know that it's a newspaper, so that's a positive. We know that it was made in Boston. We know that it was made a week after the event, so that's really a good time frame to have. And we know it was to inform, so we made our credibility 4-1, which makes the source credible. And we made an inference as to whether or not it was a colonist source or a British source. And of course, we predicted that it was colonist. So we did that for all of our sources. And then on day 2, we started reading and annotating. So if you remember, the way we annotate in social studies might be a little bit different than the way you annotate in other classes. So let's just review real quick. The first thing we do is we break it down by paragraph, right? We don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We want to make sure that we're getting a good idea of what we're reading. So we read each paragraph 2 times. The first time we read it to get an idea of what we're looking at. The second time is when we start the real work, and it's where we start annotating. So I've taught you 5 out of the 6 points of annotation so far. The first thing you do is you circle social studies words or repeated words. So if you look at our source right here, you'll notice that we have circled the words like custom house, because that's now a repeated word. Snowballs is a repeated word. Captain is a repeated word, and weapon is a repeated word. So we circled all those words. And remember, we circle social studies words and repeated words because it's going to help us to find the evidence. So we do that, and then the next thing we're supposed to do is underline our topic. But we don't have a topic sentence in these sources. Why? Because the majority of them are eyewitness accounts. So we know what the information is we're looking for. We're looking for information on who was to blame for the Boston Massacre. So what we're going to do when we're highlighting our evidence is we're going to highlight evidence for the colonists in one color, and we're going to highlight the British or the redcoats in a second color. So let's just go through this first couple of sentences, right? It says, the mob gathered near the custom house and started throwing snowballs. So who was throwing snowballs and who was gathering by the custom house? Well, that was obviously the colonists, right? They were protesting the unfair taxes. So we highlighted that in blue. The next sentence, the captain told the soldiers to fire. Who had guns at the custom house? Right, the British. So we highlighted that in orange for the British. After more snowballs were thrown, he again said fire no matter what. Again, this is something that the British did, right? Or allegedly did. Okay? So, the last sentence, one soldier fired and a man with a club hit him so hard on the hands that he dropped his weapon. So remember, the British were the only ones in the custom house, near the custom house, to have guns. So we know that when somebody hits somebody with a club or another weapon, that is the colonists. So we highlighted that way. After we're done highlighting all of our evidence, we have to create a one-sentence summary about what we learned. So we start off with a sentence starter. We learned that, and we put that the colonists were throwing snowballs. And we talked about how this piece of evidence is corroborated, right? We've now heard the same piece of evidence from 4 different sources. So when you hear the same evidence or find the same evidence from multiple sources, that's called corroborating, and that makes it more credible, right? The more sources that say the same thing means that the information is more accurate, okay? So we did that, and then we wrote a question that we had. So we asked the question, did Crispus Attucks throw snowballs, right? So that was our question. So that's what we did today, yesterday, and today, right? So we're going through the sources, we're looking for our evidence, we're writing down a question we have, and a one-sentence summary. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we did in social studies this week. It's going to be a short episode, right? So remember, as you go through your annotations, this is your last assessment grade of the quarter. So please, I'm begging you, do your best, take your time, go through it, make sure that it's done perfectly so that way I can give you a 100 on your last assessment grade of the quarter. All right, friends, what's on the agenda next week? I'm glad you asked. There is no school on Tuesday. It is election day, so please enjoy your day off. Your favorite social studies teacher, Mr. Rosten, and all of your favorite social studies teachers here at BMS are going to go on a little field trip. We're going to go look at some primary sources, learn about some information that will help us teach, and it's going to be good stuff. I'm very excited to go with my colleagues on a little adventure. And then next week, next Thursday, your essays for the HIQ, who was to blame for the Boston Massacre, are due by the end of the day. So please make sure that next week you are not, crazy with adrenaline and sugar highs from eating all the candy on Halloween. Make sure you pace yourself, right? It's okay to have a couple pieces at a time and then, slow yourself, all right? So in saying that, Halloween is tonight. So I want to just remind you of a few things, right? 1, if you're going out with your friends, make sure that you always have a buddy with you. Do not go anywhere by yourself. Always bring a buddy, or a group of people is always better. 2, when you're crossing the street, please make sure to look both ways, right? People are going to be not really paying attention that well because there's so many people on the sidewalks or walking across lawns or whatever it might be, and they're going to be looking at, crazy costumes and things like that. So please be extra careful when you cross the road, all right? And last but not least, and I mean this in all sincerity, and I mean this as your teacher and as a person who cares about you, please be careful tonight, all right? Come back on Monday happy and healthy, all right? And that's what I've been telling all of you today at the end of class. Make good decisions. Come back on Monday happy and healthy. And remember, if there's any candy that you don't like, please bring it to me. I've been sending candy to soldiers who are serving overseas for the past 10 years now. Bring me all the candy that you don't want. All right, friends? So, episode 10 in the books, 30 weeks till summer vacation. As I always say, be kind to one another. Peace be with you and with you. Mr. Rosten,